Every time I closed my eyes, Carl's message would pop up like a light cut on memories I thought I had buried. I, Santiago, 28 years old, a programmer with my own career, a life I built from scratch. Or more accurately, from the wreckage of the first betrayal I ever experienced, involving the very father I once idolized. Carl's message, my father's colleague, was just a few lines, but it changed everything. Are you the one who wrote the inventory management system years ago? I heard you're Luis's son. I froze. I was 16 when I wrote that system. Back then, I was just a kid obsessed with coding, having just completed a few online Python courses. My dad, Luis, worked as a warehouse manager for a distribution company. He would come home frustrated, constantly complaining about the piles of paperwork, about tracking inventory with Excel like it was still the 90s. One day he sat at the dinner table, shaking his head. No one can manage this mess. Every time there's an inventory check, we lose track of stuff, the numbers never match. I, full of youthful pride, blurted out, I could make a simple system to track the inventory. He looked at me like he had just seen a light in the tunnel. Can you really do it? It's just an assignment. I could give it a try. 3 months later, I finished it. A basic system, local database, data entry forms, report generation, nothing too complicated, but it worked smoothly and accurately. I'll never forget the moment my dad stared at the screen, his eyes lighting up. Wow, this is better than anything we have at work. I'll show this to my boss, just as an example. Consider it a little favor from you to me. I nodded, proud as if I had just changed the world. But then, things started to get strange. My dad asked me to remove my name from the source code, to take out all the comments, to remove the installation guide I had handwritten. I asked, why? He just laughed softly, patted me on the back. You'll understand when you're older. I believed him. 12 years later, I understood. Carl told me the truth. That system, the one I created when I was just a kid, is still being used by the company. Not only that, but it was the foundation that helped my father get promoted to operations manager, then director. He told everyone that it was he, self-taught in programming, who built the entire system. It felt like a punch to the chest. All my youth I had looked up to him, and now all that admiration shattered into pieces. I drove to my dad's house, the one he shared with Charlene, his second wife. I didn't call ahead. I didn't need to prepare. I just needed to know why. He opened the door, surprised to see me. Santiago? What's going on, son? I looked him straight in the eye, not blinking. Carl texted me about the inventory system. His face changed, like a mask was suddenly pulled off his real face. Oh, that old system? Why are you bringing it up now? Because I just found out you've been taking credit for it for over a decade. He laughed, actually laughed. Oh my God, son. Back then, you were just a kid who liked messing around with computers. I made it useful. Who would believe the work of a boy? I wrote it, every line, every form. You didn't change a thing, and you know it. Charlene walked out of the kitchen asking what was going on. When I explained, she, whom I once called my stepmother, casually said, Santiago, you need to understand. Your dad was just doing what was best for the family. Family? I remembered the time I asked my dad to help me pay for a coding boot camp. He refused, told me I needed to learn to stand on my own. And now I know. While I was struggling to scrape together money, he was enjoying the fruits of something I created. I left. I didn't say another word. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to control myself. But in my mind, a fire had started to burn. Becky, my girlfriend, told me I should let it go, that it was in the past. I nodded, but I couldn't forget. Carl sent me internal emails, where my dad was still taking credit for recent updates, even though they were patches I had sent him via personal email years ago. I dug through my old hard drive, pulling up source code files and design documents. Piece by piece, I printed them, marked them, and organized them chronologically. The code I wrote at 16 now turned into evidence. I wrote an email, sent it to HR at the company where my father worked. Dear HR, I am the one who wrote the inventory management system currently in use at the company. My father, Luis, used it to advance in his career without acknowledging the creator. I am attaching all the evidence. I am not seeking compensation. I just want the truth to be known. Sincerely, Santiago. I hit send. And just like that, the real story had only just begun. I arranged to meet my father at a familiar place, a small diner on Maple Street, the one he used to take me to every weekend when I was a kid. Scrambled eggs, toast, and a glass of hot milk, our tradition. I chose this place because I needed somewhere neutral and public, somewhere he couldn't use his fatherly power to make me bow down. When I arrived, he was already sitting at our usual corner. Contrary to the anxiety gnawing at me, he seemed completely at ease, even picking at the fries from the shared plate with Charlene. Yes, he brought her along, like this was a family get-together, not an interrogation. He waved as if I were the dutiful son coming home to visit. Santiago, you're here. Come sit down. Charlene wanted to meet you when she heard you wanted to talk. I stood there, not moving to sit. No smile, no pleasantries. I pulled a stack of papers from my backpack. Those were the printouts of source code, database designs, and documents I had written when I was just a 16-year-old kid. I placed them on the table, emphasizing each word. Do you know about this? This is the inventory management system you've been taking credit for creating. His face froze for a moment. The smile vanished. In its place was the stern look, the one I used to fear when I was a kid. Not here, he whispered, grinding his teeth. Not in public. This is exactly where I want to be, I replied, because I want a witness, and because I'm not afraid anymore. Charlene looked from him to me, frowning. What's going on? Luis, what is he talking about? My father tried to wave it off, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. Just old business not worth bringing up. But I didn't let him escape. Why did you erase my name from the system? Why did you tell the whole company that you taught yourself programming and developed the system on your own? He started to lose his composure, his voice sharp. You're so ungrateful. I gave you everything. If it wasn't for me turning your little student project into a real tool, do you think anyone would have respected it? Charlene interrupted, trying to ease the tension. Santiago, your dad just wants what's best for the family. Maybe we can work something out? I laughed, not a light laugh, but a bitter one that came from deep inside. Best for the family? Is that what we're calling stealing now? Taking credit for your own son's work? My laughter echoed through the diner, causing a few people to turn and look. Their gazes brushed over our table like invisible blades. My father slammed his hand on the table, his face red as if he were about to explode. Shut up! I'm still your father. You think you can walk in here and destroy everything? I no longer avoided his gaze. My voice was low, each word clear. You've already destroyed everything. Every time you took the credit instead of me, every time you looked at me and said, you'll understand when you're older. Well, I understand now. I pulled out my phone, opened the draft email to HR. Quietly, I showed him the screen. If you want to save anything, now's the time. My father's hands trembled. His eyes started to show panic. His voice cracked. If you send that email, you won't be my son anymore. I hit send, right in front of him. I stopped being your son the day you decided to be a thief instead of a father. Without saying another word, I turned and walked away. He stood up, shouting after me, Get out! Get out of my life! You're an ungrateful son! I didn't turn back. I just softly replied, And you're the one who taught me that justice isn't in blood. It's in the truth. When I got home, Becky was sitting on the couch, her eyes full of worry. I hadn't even said anything when my phone rang. 1, 2, 3, 4. I stopped counting. The screen was filled with one name. Dad. 92 missed calls in just 3 hours. My phone was flooded with messages from him, half threats, half pleas. A few lines stood out. You're destroying this family. You have no idea what you're doing. Please take it back. I'm begging you. Please. Becky squeezed my hand tightly. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you doubt that, even your father. I looked at her, then back at the screen, which was flashing with continuous notifications. I had lit a fire, and I knew. It would burn away every lie in this family. The next morning, I woke up to a phone nearly dead from overload with notifications. 92 missed calls from my father was the last number I counted before I silenced my phone. Messages mixed with threats and pleas. A chaotic picture of a man in panic, watching the mask he's worn for over a decade crumble piece by piece. Becky made coffee, her hands shaking slightly as she handed me the cup. Maybe, be careful. What if he loses control? I nodded, my eyes still glued to the screen, not to see my father's messages, but to wait for a response from HR. 9:30 a.m. The email arrived. Subject, Information Verification Appointment. From Robin McAllister, HR Director. We have received the documents you sent. Thank you for sharing this important information. We would like to meet with you in person at the office for verification at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. All information will be kept strictly confidential. Best regards. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand, but because I couldn't believe that something I had been working on for 12 years was finally being listened to. The next morning, I walked into the building where my father used to walk out every day with his head held high. Unlike him, I wasn't walking with pride. I was carrying a backpack full of documents, weighed down with memories, and a determination that couldn't be shaken. Robin was a woman in her 40s, her hair neatly pulled back, sharp eyes but not without empathy. She shook my hand and invited me to sit in a private meeting room with frosted glass walls. We want to hear the entire story, from start to finish. I placed each document on the table. The original source code from 2008 with the timestamp, my handwritten notebook diagram from high school, the email I sent to my father about the bug fix, a screenshot from Carl of the internal email, Becky's handwritten notes, helping me verify each timeline. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Robin wasn't in a hurry. She read, took notes, and cross-checked every piece like she was reconstructing a case. You know, Robin said after flipping to the last page, there's something odd I've always suspected over the years. Why such an efficient operating system had no official documentation, no development team, and no clear maintenance procedures? I nodded. Because it all existed in his head. Or rather, it was in my head, but he took credit for it. Robin furrowed her brow, as if she was piecing something together. We'll be conducting a full investigation. And, do you want to keep your identity confidential? I shook my head. There's nothing left to hide. That afternoon, before I could leave the apartment, my father barged in. He still had the old key, the one I foolishly never thought to take back. The door swung open, and he stormed in like a storm. Are you out of your mind? You've just destroyed my life. Becky immediately pulled out her phone to record. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at him. The man I once thought was the pillar of our family, now twisted with rage. I did everything for you, for this family. Is this how you repay me? He yelled, his face red with fury. Number, you did it for yourself, and now you're paying the price. I'm your father, and I was the last one to believe in you until yesterday. I handed him a copy of the email I sent to HR with the acknowledgement of receipt. He tore it up, stomped on it, then broke down crying. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt relief, like I had just taken a heavy stone off my chest. The next day, Carl texted me. HR put him on administrative leave. The investigation has started. But the shock didn't end there. Aunt Geraldine, his sister, called me, her voice trembling. Santiago, do you remember the fabric store I lost everything on? I lost it all because of a deal Luis suggested. I remember. Now I know. It was all planned. I was just part of the game he set up to earn commissions for a partner. I thought I was incompetent. But no. I was deceived. She broke down crying. I sat there, frozen. Less than 24 hours later, I received 3 more calls from relatives, each one with a different story, another piece of the puzzle my father had crushed to climb higher. Becky sat next to me, pulling out an old photo album. She pointed to a picture of me at graduation, standing next to a model of a science project. Do you see it? I looked. In the picture, my father had his hand on the model, standing in front of me, as if he were the one who created it. She smiled softly. He always knew how to step forward and take the spotlight, but not this time. I used to think my father could never fall. All my life, he was like a fortress, cold, solid, and unshakable. But I had forgotten one thing. Someone who climbs using lies will always have to fear the truth. Wednesday, 2:17 p.m. My phone buzzed. Carl. It started. HR just released the initial findings. Luis has been suspended immediately. I stared at the text, feeling a jolt through my chest. It wasn't joy. It wasn't satisfaction. It was confirmation. I wasn't dreaming. Finally, after 12 years, the moment I'd been waiting for had arrived. 17 minutes later, the pounding on the door came fast and furious. Becky looked at me, her eyes filled with caution. I nodded. This time I had locked the door, but that didn't stop the storm waiting outside the hallway. I checked the camera. My father standing there, wrinkled shirt, crooked tie, face flushed. The man who used to sit confidently on stage accepting awards was now trembling at the door of his son's apartment. The son he had once seen as a sacrificial pawn. He yelled, Santiago, open the door! I raised you! You don't have the right to destroy everything I've built. I didn't open it. Becky silently raised her phone to record. In the calmest voice I could muster, I said through the crack in the door, I've grown up, Dad. And now, I understand everything. He kept pounding on the door, his voice breaking. I've lost everything. Are you happy now? I was just trying to secure your future. I stayed silent. He shouted a few more things, then walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hallway like a silent goodbye. That evening, Charlene called me. No more anger, no more pretense, just sobs. I didn't know it was this bad. After he came back, he smashed the living room. All the awards, all the framed pictures. They're all shattered. She paused for a moment. I could hear her ragged breathing through the phone. I started going through his iPad, the shared email account. I found dozens of messages where he manipulated others, took credit for their work, and blamed colleagues. I sent everything to HR. I couldn't cover for him anymore. The next morning, Geraldine called back, her voice trembling. Son, he did this to everyone. Not just you, not just me. Relatives, old friends. Everyone has a story to tell. I opened Facebook, not to look at pictures, but to read the family war that was now playing out publicly. Half of the family called me ungrateful, a traitor, while the other half, led by Geraldine, was gradually revealing the truth. Some shared how he'd taken money for investment help, but never paid it back. Others talked about how he used their name to co-sign loans, then suddenly they were stuck with the debt. Some, like Carl, had stayed silent throughout their careers because they were afraid. Now no one was afraid anymore. By the end of the day, Carl sent me a message. 3 companies have pulled out of Luis consulting contracts. The news is spreading fast. People are calling him the ghost behind every shady deal. Then the last message made me freeze for a few seconds. HR is inviting you to meet with the board. They want to offer you a consulting role to transition the system. No one understands it better than you. I stared at that message. Once I was the son pressured to remove my name from the system, to stay silent while the grown-ups handled things. And now, it was that same system bringing me back, as the only one who truly deserved to be there. Before bed, I sat and flipped through an old photo album. There was one from my senior year science project, where I stood behind the model. My father was in front, hand resting on the model as if it were his creation. I smiled softly, not bitterly, but with peace. The second time I went to my father's company, this time not as someone accusing, but as someone invited. Someone they needed. Someone they should have acknowledged 12 years ago. Robin greeted me with a look full of understanding. Beside her was a middle-aged man with graying hair, the technical director. He shook my hand, his voice serious. We've gone through the materials, and honestly, none of us thought that system was written by a 16-year-old. But you've proven the impossible. I sat down, opened my laptop, and walked them through the system structure, key points in the data processing logic, and explained why some of the patches from the past 3 years didn't fit the original architecture. He nodded constantly. After the meeting, I received a 3-month consulting contract to help the company transition the intellectual property from someone who no longer deserved it. A week later, my father was officially fired. Not just suspended, his positions, rights, and benefits were completely stripped. No farewell, no speech, no applause from colleagues. Just a short internal email. We are notifying you that the employment contract with Luis T. is terminated effective immediately due to severe violations of professional ethics. That night, I received a call from Charlene. She wasn't crying anymore. She told me that after my father came home, he smashed every framed award hanging on the wall. The testaments to his success were built with sweat, tears, and lies. He can't accept the truth, Charlene said, but at least now I see who he really is. She had moved out and was staying temporarily with Aunt Geraldine, who unexpectedly had become an ally in this journey. Not long after, I learned that my father had tried reaching out to some former business partners, looking for one last chance to salvage his reputation. But Carl, the colleague who had feared him the most, was the one who shut down all those efforts. 3 companies canceled their contracts. 2 organizations refused to continue funding him, and a group of former employees publicly signed a petition to have all of his accomplishments removed from the company records. One evening, I went to my mother's house, the place where I spent my early childhood before my father remarried. She looked at me, her eyes heavy with sadness. You did the right thing, she said. But I know doing the right thing isn't always easy. I stayed quiet. Then I asked, did you know about what he did with my software? She nodded very gently. I knew he used it, but I didn't know he took all the credit. I thought it was just a part of it. I nodded. Everyone thought that. And that was the most insidious trap. Silence masked by half-truths. One night, Becky and I were watching the video of my father screaming outside my house. She said, did you see his eyes? That's the look of someone who's realizing for the first time they no longer have control. I looked at the screen, then said quietly, I spent my youth afraid of that look, and now I pity it. A month later, I received the final message from my father. You won, but you'll never understand that I did it all for who. I read it, but didn't reply. Instead, I sent him a photo, the one from my graduation, the first time I stood in front of my nameplate with the software I wrote displayed as an honor project. But this time, there was no father standing in front of me, blocking the light. I added a message. I don't need to understand. I just need you to stop taking credit for my work. As for who you did it for, the whole family knows. Sometimes to find justice, you have to lose your family. But sometimes, that's the only way to find yourself. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and share this video so that more people can find the strength to speak up and claim what they truly deserve. Leave a comment below. Have you ever stayed silent for family, or did you stand up for the truth? See you in the next story. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.